What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your host over here. Thank you for tuning in. This episode is brought to you guys in partnership with our friends over at Hoot Camo. Go check them out. There will be a discount code later in the episode for you guys. My guest this week, his name is John, and you guys are probably more familiar with him as the Public Land Advocate on social media. John is very diligent in openly discussing hunters' rights, public lands, wildlife conservation issues, all the kind of stuff that is hot and heavy on our minds and in the forefront of the wildlife and hunting conservation space, in my opinion, right now. And definitely, as you guys know, there's been a heavy focus of it on this show. So I invited John to come on the podcast to talk about these things and dive in deep on some relevant topics for this day and age and some of the issues that are on the table right now. It is a great conversation, and John's a great guy. His opinions might not even be that aligns with most people, but we had a really, really great and productive, respectful conversation, I feel like, about a lot of this stuff. And I'll look forward to having him back on the show. We're going to have to do another one because I don't even think we got to everything that we planned on talking about. So really, really great conversation. I hope you guys enjoy this one. I hope you find some value in it. In my opinion, there are a lot of great lessons that hunters and outdoors, men and women, outdoor enthusiasts can take away from listening to this conversation, even if you are not a hunter. Even if you are not somebody who has ever purchased a bow or a gun or gone out with the intention of harvesting an animal, this is a good episode to listen to. And if you have any friends that you think might enjoy that, who fall into that category, I encourage you to send this podcast to them, because this John puts some things into a great perspective where I think that a lot of folks out there can appreciate and understand the love and passion that we have for both hunting and the outdoors. So it's a great podcast. Hope you guys enjoy. Real quick before we get going, you guys know the drill. Make sure that you hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever we have up there for you guys, before you leave here today. That way you get notified every time we put out a new podcast. You know when we publish new episodes every Monday on all the regular podcast apps, and then Thursdays on the YouTube channel. That's when the podcast videos are live over there. Go subscribe to the YouTube, because we got more than just podcasts coming out. We also produce different hunting shows and films, gear reviews, educational content, all sorts of stuff like that. So make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube. We are also doing our milestone giveaway right now, which, if you guys haven't seen that on our social media pages, you need to go check it out. Go to any one of our socials, and it is going to be front and center, pinned to the top right there for you guys. You can enter to win a pair of Wiley X Jackal frames in the Chris Kyle Signature Series. That's iPro, a good pair of sunglasses, high quality for you guys if you don't know or are familiar with Wiley X. So make sure that you guys go get entered in the giveaway. It only takes a few seconds to enter, and you can help some of our social media pages reach their next milestones. So by subscribing to the YouTube, you are in part accomplishing that. FallObsession.com is the website. That's the hub. That's where you guys can go to find all of our content. Every show, every film, every gear review, every educational article, it is all on there for you guys and more. We literally have content covering hundreds of different topics and genres in the hunting and outdoor space. So make sure that you go check out everything that we got on fallobsession.com. Follow us on all the social media platforms. Wherever you are active, we are active there also. And last but not least, if you guys have not checked out Carbon TV, you need to go take a look. Carbon TV is a free hunting and outdoor streaming platform where you guys can check out hundreds of different hunting shows, podcasts, films from top creators in the industry. Fall Obsession produces 4 different shows on that platform. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, is on Carbon TV, as well as our 2 different hunting shows titled Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Again, guys, it's Carbon TV. Go check it out. And with that, we're going to get our conversation started with John, the Public Land Advocate. I hope you guys enjoy this one. You are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
The power lies within that middle ground.
Hunting transformed my life.
I think you have to be built somewhat different
That Dale Brisby's a super puncher.
It's
Hey,
even
we need to get Pop-Tarts on the next Walmart order. I'm serious.
Because to come into this country and stay dedicated to that, it was pretty awesome.
If it's only for one, then you've done your job.
We have to do what's right for the wildlife, and that's our responsibility as hunters.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession Podcast. Got an awesome guest joining me this week. His first name is John, but you guys probably know him on social media as the Public Land Advocate. John, welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast, man.
What up, Sam? What up, folks? It's the Public Land Advocate here, coming to talk with you guys on Fall Obsession. Thank you, Sam, for having me. I appreciate it. I was hoping this day would come based on our previous interaction, so super excited to be having these conversations with you today.
Yeah, man, I was kind of going to talk about that. I actually stopped you from talking about that when we were just chit-chatting before we hit record. Just how we found you, at least, or you stumbled across one of our reels kind of at the same time. But yeah, we were dealing with we had one of our posts hit the social media algorithms just right, and I actually did a whole podcast about it. It was roughly about, I don't know, 30 episodes ago for us, but yeah, talking about just the anti-hunters and them hopping on the bandwagon and going keyboard warrior on stuff. And yeah, it was a post about either pheasant hunting or rabbit hunting, something like that. And yeah, just hit them just right. And you took our reel and kind of reposted it and did some commentary on it and everything. And I was like, man, this guy's interesting. let's see what we got going on here. And I started checking out your page and everything. So yeah, appreciate you following our journey and everything, and helping spread the word for conservation at the same time. So yeah.
Oh, of course. Like, I couldn't believe the ire that y'all drew compared to some of the other things that I see that draws comparatively little ire from people who claim to be conservation minded and then don't want to look any further than what they see or maybe what they're told or feel. And I think that that's particularly dangerous because, you know, I had this conversation recently with my wife. I had to thin out the skunk population at our new house. And she was like, why? And I'm like, do you like our dogs? Do you like them not smelling terrible? You know, do you like the foundation of our house not being eroded by burrowing critters and things like that? So it was like a conversation where she was able to understand that. And I think that's what these people who are keyboard warriors miss, is that we should be having an actual conversation about this. Instead, it's just vitriol and or, for lack of a better term, hatred that comes from individuals towards hunters, fishers, anyone who presents images that they don't like. And I don't think that's good for conversations. I don't think that's good for people. And yeah, I was like very happy to jump in and talk, like have that conversation. I'd be like, no, like these guys didn't do anything wrong. One, like if they did and they posted on social media, I'm sure the game warden would have talked to them, right? Like
Right.
Number one, like that. But number two is, you know, you guys did a lot. And I think your commentary too, from what I've seen on the multiple posts where these people come and attack you, is probably more dedicated towards like, hey, like, let me steer you in this opposite direction, and kind of resonated with that, especially like seeing the myriad of TikTok comments and Instagram comments you guys got. So yeah, no, for sure. Like, this is a conversation we need to have. And the way y'all approach it is the same way that I like to approach the conversations.
Yeah, you have to be from our side of it and everything. You have to come at it. And I just did an episode that got published at the time of recording this. It actually got published today. I did an episode talking about some of this stuff, and we have to take emotion out of it. Basically, we can be personal with it as far as this is, you know, how it impacts us directly or our personal experiences with it. But it's like the haters and the trolls, they come out of the gate, you know, just amped on emotion and hatred, and that's not going to ultimately win them over any argument, especially when they are coming to a hunting based page and that's full of hunters, and the people who like and comment and everything are hunters. And you know, that's obviously gonna typically go one way in that sense. But at the same time, if they show up throwing trash cans, we can't just automatically default to throwing trash cans back.
No, I
my
agree.
take. So
No, 100%. Sorry, I muted myself because my wife just pulled into the driveway and the dogs went crazy.
wouldn't be the first time, I promise. So
No, I think that's 100% correct. I also think like one thing we should add to that conversation is that as hunters, we should probably do better in some instances. And around the same time I found y'all's post, there's a post on Reddit of a guy with a pickup truck full of dead coyotes. Like it was probably like an F-250 dually. And like I'm talking tailgate down above the bed, and I'm like, all right, like you guys did some predator control. That's awesome. But did you really need to pull into a Walmart parking lot without a tarp over it? Did you need to like draw the potential to have that ire? And I think not to sound like Matt Ranella or any of the other people who are like, don't post these pictures. I think that there's a conversation that can be had. But hey, sorry, the dogs are getting active again. She's coming through the door, and
that's all right, man.
but I think there's a lot of conversations that can be had about how to artfully and tastefully do things instead of, do things that seem to pull those people out of the woodwork. And the guy who posted that Reddit thread was very much like mystified that people would have that negative reaction. And I'm like, man, I, as a hunter and as somebody who understands predator control, I have a negative reaction to that. Like, hey man, a tarp is $8. You're in a $75,000 truck. You can't afford an $8 tarp. Come on, bro.
Yeah, it's that whole side of it I think goes to just how we carry ourselves, how we represent ourselves as hunters and outdoorsmen. It has to be in a respectful and I've thrown around the word in the past professional. I'm not saying that we got to take this like a white collar stance to this or anything by any means, but I mean there has to be a little bit of tastefulness and respect for those people who might not see things the way that we see them. Because I get predator control. You can 100% go kill coyotes and wipe out a truckload full of them, but yeah, do you need to go parading around with that? Probably not, right? And that just, to your point, that goes back to, okay, we're hunters. We believe that what we're doing is right and ethical, serves a purpose and all that kind of stuff. Predator control is a real thing that needs to happen, but what kind of image are we painting, not just for us specifically, but for the hunting community as a whole? So that's what people have to be mindful of, because there's been so many people. The exact time of the event and the name of the guy slipped my mind, but a few years ago, there was that dude up in Wyoming or wherever it was that shot a wolf and drug it behind his pickup truck through the streets of the town or something like that. And I mean that's just freaking sick, man. You can't be doing that as a hunter. You can't. So
and he took it to the bar.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he took it to the bar and like it was wounded and he paraded it around, and I was like, yo, man, like no. Like I get predator hunting, I get predator control, and I have a hard time because my college mascot was a coyote where I went to school. So sometimes like I feel bad when I do take a coyote or I do some predator control. I'm like, oh, there's some part of me that still identifies with my college mascot, and I was but then I'm like, okay, but this is something that we need to do, and we need to do it. And I know the public opinion of predator control is incredibly low, like especially like mountain lions, bears, bobcats, coyotes. And I think back to your analogy of throwing trash cans, when we respond negatively online for social media to these trolls, we just justify every feeling that they have.
Yes, 100%.
And we justify the next comment and the next hatred. And because they don't want to have sometimes necessarily a conversation that's going to change their mind, and they're looking for us to justify, right? They're looking for that confirmation bias that they have so they can go out there and be like, look, man, I knew these people were terrible,
right,
and they proved it.
Yep, exactly. That's what we have to steer clear of. And yeah, not bring that unnecessary attention to ourselves in that regard, for sure. So
Agreed.
yeah, man, I want to. We definitely dove in hot and heavy predator hunting and everything right out of the gate, but I want to ask you a little bit, just kind of about your journey into hunting, I guess I should say.
Okay.
Like what did that look like in your life? How did you become interested in hunting in the outdoors in the first place? Where'd that begin for you?
So I'll start. I was born in upstate New York, around Saratoga. My grandfathers hunted, my dad hunted, and that's all I wanted to do when I was a kid. I watched tapes, right? Like, let me date myself a little bit. Like, they had old Betamax tapes from the 80s before like Betamax and VHS had like won the war, and they had VHS tapes. And man, if you could wear out a tape, I probably wore out several North American Fishing Club tapes and several of the old Realtree Outdoor tapes that had been released that my dad and my grandpa had collected over the time, and other nameless people I can't remember off the top of my head. And all I wanted to do is hunt and fish. And we grew up on 16 acres, which when you say New York and acreage, people get kind of confused because they only think of the city. Upstate New York is gorgeous. There's not monster bucks in upstate New York, but there's a lot of deer and there's a lot of black bears. You can go trout fishing and smallmouth. So I got into all that as a young person. Have been doing it since I could walk, and like not hunting because New York at the time you couldn't hunt small game until you were 12. So I just tagged along with dad my whole life and sat in some rickety homemade tree stands and had
Yeah.
to sit still and probably got like yelled at a lot. And then we moved west to Illinois, and that passion continued because we lived in a community with a lake, so I got to see waterfowl. Then we moved to Kansas, and it just kept growing and growing. And then how I got to where I am now, to make a long story short, so at 35, I had a hip replacement. 34, I had another hip surgery to try to make it so I didn't have to have a hip replacement. And I was sitting in the deer stand one day, kind of like massaging my leg, and I was like, for living in a state like Oklahoma, and I lived in Texas too, and I'm like, there's a lot of public lands that need advocacy, and people deserve to be able to go outside, whether they hunt, fish, or do anything. And that's kind of the genesis for where the public land advocate started on a warm Oklahoma early archery hunt in October. And I kind of was like, well, I want to make hunting content, and then I was like, well, I don't know if that's what I want to do, because I've only ever filmed myself shooting one deer, and then I never shared it with anybody except for like my dad and the friends that we deer hunt with in Kansas every year. And so I was like, well, what if instead of doing the same hunting content, what if we start advocating to get more people outside?
Yeah.
Because this is such an integral part of my life. And being an advocate for it has changed people's minds that I know. When I started dating the person who would become my wife, she was a staunch anti-hunter. In fact, it almost broke up our relationship
Oh, wow.
at the over like right around the 1 year mark. I had told her the day before Thanksgiving, I'm like, I have this big buck on camera. I have the perfect wind to get him to come to where I am. It's like the tag end of the rut. Like, let me go. Right? He's shown up on camera 3 times at this time. Let me do it. And she goes, okay, you got to come back by 1 and help me cook Thanksgiving dinner for like the next day. I was like, bet. So I left the house at 4 o'clock in the morning, got out to the deer blind because I had found a small 5-acre lease, because at this time I hadn't been living in Oklahoma that long. I still hadn't got the opportunity to explore a ton of public land, and I was sitting there, and 9:30 this giant buck showed up. And at the time he is inside the top 100 biggest deer killed in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
Taped out to 167 inches, 18 scoreable points.
Oh, man.
Usually he's behind me when I do this, but we haven't hung him up yet.
You'll have to
and,
send me a picture of that one. I don't know if I've seen that deer. Yeah.
For sure, I'll do that. And I made a decision that I felt like was the right decision in the moment that taught me more than I could ever read in the book. So I'd blown up my shoulder, couldn't draw a bow back, so I bought a crossbow. right? And I'll add, we can talk about how I get a ton of hate online for defending crossbow hunters too. I don't know if you've ever seen that, man. But I made the decision. I was like, I'm going to shoot this deer through the center of the chest. I was like, look, I like drew it out in my head, put the reticle where it needed to be. And I was like, I can't remember if deer have like a bone that comes up or not. And then I ended up pulling it just a hair to the left, sent the arrow, hit right where I was aiming, watched him rear back, and I'm like, oh, you just go fall over and die. Like his butt touched the ground. That's how hard it rocked him backwards. And
wow.
I shot him at 17 yards.
Oh.
So I'm like, yes. And then he ran away. And like I could see blood coming out of him. I'd severed the brachial artery in his leg, punched through lung, liver into the stomach. And I'm like, this deer's not going to go far.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called my wife and I was so excited. All I could say was, I shot him. I shot him. And her first response was, if you killed someone, you probably should hang up the phone and call law enforcement. And I'm like, okay, I shot that deer I was after. And she's like, okay, well, go find, like, wait the time that you usually wait, go find him. So I track him and I have a great blood trail, hop the fence. So I have to go to the neighbor's house to get permission, go do that. That turns into another hilarious story where they're related to a person who is on the interview committee for the job that I have now. So they called that person and asked about me.
Oh, wow.
And that person was like, oh, yeah, he's a great person. Like, he's hilarious. Like, and these people to this day, I still send a Christmas card to, like, awesome. Because they helped out. I lose, to go back to tracking the deer, I get across the property, lose the blood trail, call several tracking dogs. Mm-hmm. It's like the only one who can come out is like, I can't be there until 2:30. So now I have to call my wife. And I'm like, babe, I'm going to be late. And she's like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. Like, she's like, okay, well, you'll still be home before like we have to do everything. So she's like, keep me updated. Well, 2:30 rolls around. This tracking dog doesn't get here till like 3:00. We go find the deer. The neighbor property helps me get it back. By the time I get him in the car, it's almost dark.
Oh, wow.
And so I get home at 8:30 at night. And she wouldn't even talk to me about it.
Hey guys, sorry to cut y'all off from the conversation. We'll get back to it in just a second. But first I want to tell you guys about Hoot Camo. Hoot Camo is one of the best camouflage brands out there for the blue-collar hunter. The prices, you can't beat them. The patterns are extremely versatile. They work in so many different environments. I have worn Hoot Camo hunting whitetails, hogs, and turkeys down here in the hardwoods, the mesquites, the scrub brush of Texas. I've worn it in the flatland plains of eastern Colorado hunting mule deer. I've even worn it in the mountains of central Idaho hunting elk. It works in so many different places. It is extremely high quality gear, extremely warm, holds up well against the elements. You cannot beat it. Go to hootcamo.com, use the code FallObsession15 on your next order, no matter how big or small it is, and check out everything that Hoot Camo has on there for you guys.
I was like, do you want to see it? And she's like, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't think we said 30 words that night. And to make matters worse, I had to drop him off at the taxidermist who did the taxidermy work called me because he's a friend of one of my colleagues. And he's like, yeah, come over tomorrow at 10. So then I have to tell her, okay, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have to drive 40 minutes to drop him off at the taxidermist. So I like skinned him, quartered him at the taxidermist. She's like, if you're not home by noon, don't come home. Like, find a new place to live. And like, she has since softened up on it. She's like, respects the animal, but like, we had an honest to God conversation on Christmas. Like, the greatest day to have a conversation about your relationship almost ending. She's like, had you like missed that deadline, I would have broken up with you.
Wow.
And then like, I was like, fair enough, right? Like, fair enough. And like, since that moment though, she has seen what hunting has done to me and to like other people who I've introduced to it. And she's like, I don't know if I want to do it. In fact, I don't want to probably ever do it because I'm a bigger waterfowler than I am a deer hunter. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't know about that. I don't want to go out. She just doesn't want to go out and be cold. Right. And I'm like, Okay, fair enough. I get that. I have had times where I've been so cold, I've been in physical pain.
Yeah, every hunter's there. I'm pretty sure we've all been in a stand, whether it's waterfowl or deer, where we're like, man, is this really worth it? Should I really be out here right now?
I got to go hunt mule deer. We drew a tag last year in western Kansas.
Awesome.
And one day I remember like I took a picture and sent it to her, and I had like my whole beard and mustache was like frozen solid. And it was negative 17 degrees in the wind chill.
Ugh.
And she was like, yeah, you're not doing any solid favors to ever get me to want to do this with those photos.
Not selling it.
She's like, as long as you keep bringing it home, I'll eat it. And so, like, we through that, sharing the meat with her and getting her to eat it. We've got her family to go from kind of like on the fence about hunting to this, and it's really opened a lot of people's eyes to the beauty of like what is in our natural world, and they'll be the first people to line up and tell you like this tastes better than ground beef from the store
Oh yeah,
or
absolutely.
steaks from the store.
Man, I appreciate you sharing that story because that goes with a lot of the topics or the meat of the discussion that I have kind of on the docket today, just as far as talking about interacting with folks that don't see things the way that we necessarily do. And that's a perfect example, just even within your own family, of differing opinions that might not ever perfectly align, but there's a mutual respect there for where everybody stands. And yeah, even going back to where we started our podcast and everything, it's like that's how it should be done. That's 100% how it should be done. So that's awesome.
And I know I've like through her, like I'll take a lot of times I'll do the whole rear leg of a deer and I'll turn it into jerky. So like just pounds and pounds of it. And like I can always her coworkers now who were anti-hunters who now appreciate like the harvest aspect of it. I can tell because she's come home and she's like, "Hey, are you gonna make jerky again this year?" And I'm like, "It's September. When it's time, yes. Like we will turn another roast, like another whole hind quarter into jerky for you to share, like with your colleagues." And they're
Yeah.
like, so it's like that ripple effect of like the positive experience moving outwards, I think is much more influential to people than, like we've talked about the negative things.
Oh yeah.
I have students who like, because I do work in higher ed, have come up to me and asked about it because I have a mule deer skull in my office. I found like a big dead head on top of the buck that I'd harvest. And I was like, it's pretty cool. Like put this in my office. They'll talk about it. And it's like, I don't care if you want to hunt. I just want you to go outside.
Yeah.
I want you to go outside. I want you to experience public land. I want you to see the beauty of it. And even if like the furthest away you go is a city park, I think that's public land too that needs to be advocated for. Because in where I live, we have a very nice set of public parks, and then there's like one road, and then it just maintenance goes away. And it's like, okay, like, hundreds of people use this every day on both sides of that road. Why can we not have it look nice and friendly and inviting like the other side of the road? And two, that was like part of where I started with this whole journey of advocacy is like, hey, if the most nature that people experience is a nice open city park where they can see birds, maybe in the morning they see deer or turkeys, they see some geese or ducks on the pond, and it gives them an admiration for these wild spaces. Those are people that we can then work into what you and I do and go out. And I know that there are members and people in our space who say that we shouldn't recruit more hunters, and I do appreciate their opinions. Like I do appreciate the Hunt Quietly guys. Like I have a lot of good conversations with them on social media. I challenge everyone who's in this space to every person you meet that does this, make them an advocate.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what makes me upset about the major organizations is like, man, you guys have millions of members nationwide. Why do we not run advocacy campaigns? Why do we not, as Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation, Ducks Unlimited, right, the National Deer Association, why are we not running campaigns to advocate and get our members to advocate on their own behalf, right? Because if we're loud, there's 15 million of us in the United States. Give or take, like, because we don't track, lifetime license sales, right? We only track licenses sold per year. So there's
Right.
could be more. Why do we not turn those people into advocates? Why do we not say, hey, you've got a voice? Like you said, and I just listened to the podcast you did by yourself, and you're like, hey, we have to have a voice. It takes a minute.
Yeah. Oh,
1 minute.
so you did listen to literally today to a brand new
Yeah.
episode. I said
Yeah.
that earlier, thinking, oh man, it's fresh, hot off the press. Probably not a lot of people have tuned in yet. That's awesome. Appreciate that.
So yeah, man, like I caught that on the way home and then like finished it like while I was working on the new property and everything. And I was like, you know what? 100%. I agree. It takes you a minute.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't spare a minute of your day, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah,
If you can't take a
absolutely.
minute out of doom scrolling on the toilet to be like, oh, you know, these lands are important to me because maybe one day I want to go hunt elk in the Rocky Mountains, whether it's Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, Washington, or, you know, here in Oklahoma. Like we have a once in a lifetime draw for that. And it's like, you know, these spaces, these things, these experiences need voices because otherwise we just get sucked into, oh, there's a couple people who are loud and it's easy for us to be ignored. But if one of my friends, and I try not to mention their name because they do work for the government still, as a staffer, told me if you can get 10 people in one day, 10 people one day to make phone calls, you have scared the crap out of any politician.
Wow.
And it's like because they take phone calls more seriously than emails because it's like if you take the time to pick up the phone and call, you are scaring the bejesus out of people. You get 10 friends to do that. Like if you guys are sitting out watching football, it's halftime, mute the TV, everybody call.
Yeah, I just watched your reel today, where, and golly, I'm gonna look bad. I'm already forgetting the exact issue because there's been so many freaking issues here lately. But
Oh, yeah.
you were talking about like taking the car to get the oil changed, and calling your rep, to advocate while you're there, and while you're sitting there in the waiting room, you got a couple other people to call too. It's like that's a prime example. And again, the personal interaction, the way that you in a one-on-one setting carry yourself, your character, that speaks volumes for hunting and the side of the advocacy that you're discussing right now and everything. And that's why it's so important. I don't know where. I don't know. The whole adding hunters to the pool and everything, adding outdoorsmen, right? Trying to grow the community and people that kind of oppose that to some extent. I don't know that I agree with that necessarily. I understand their arguments, I guess, but for me, it's like the hunting, conservation, everything that comes with it, it has to continue somehow. And whether it's your peers or the next generation coming up after you, like you have to set people up for success. You have to set this thing up to continue to succeed. And that was another thing I talked with Cable Smith recently about. I had him on the show, and we talked about.
Yeah. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he is a good dude. We talked about. I asked him the question. I was like, "Do you think it's intimidating for new people coming in, like in the current social media world, all this stuff about hunting is front and center, and now you have people such as yourself and us that are actively being vocal and advocating for hunters' rights, for conservation, speaking up against all these issues and stuff that comes down the pipe." I was like, I asked him, I was like, "Do you think that it's intimidating for people to look at hunting and be like, oh, do I have to be like that? Like, is that what it is?" And I don't know that it's intimidating. I think that when we teach them about hunting, we have to teach them that part of it, I think, is what it comes down to. Like, hey, this, as a hunter, this is also your responsibility. Like, you also have to be active and doing this and paying attention to this kind of stuff because X, Y, and Z over here are the reasons that this is important and everything. So I don't know. It's been some interesting conversations lately about all this kind of stuff for sure.
I mean, I 100% agree with that. Like, I think that you don't have to come in hard charging. Hunting's intimidating enough. Like, I got bit by the waterfowl bug we had like a banner day. I shot one duck. We're not going to talk about that. I went through a box and a half of shells for one duck. I was 14. It rained. Birds were everywhere. And we were in Cheyenne Bottoms. If you've ever heard about Cheyenne Bottoms, like when the birds are there, it is unbeatable hunting. And I was like, this is all I want to do. I like deer hunting. All I want to do is I want to duck hunt. And like I think about, man, if I started duck hunting at my age, in my mid 30s, that's intimidating. And then you'd be like, eventually you want people to be advocates. And part of my thing that I tell people is you don't have to be a loud voice, but be the guy who picks up trash. I did some stuff with Veganless TV about their like public land cleanup stuff. And we were like, we don't care, if you post a picture, you post a video, but like go out and like pick up public land and help that. Because one of the things I worked on, and it was like the first project I did as the public land advocate, is we got in Oklahoma, people hate this. I don't know why they hate it. But we got shotgun holes classified as litter.
Okay.
And they hate it because I worked with a couple bird watching organizations that are big in the state of Oklahoma. And they're like, well, we hate going out to these public marshes and seeing a pile of shotgun shells. And it started with a picture that I had sent a friend who's in a bird watching group of me and my friend after opening weekend of teal season. We picked up 2 5-gallon buckets full of spent hulls.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, we have to do something. That picture made its way to the ODWC. And they're like, okay, this is an issue. And that's where I talk about, like, we can work across the aisle to beautify and protect public lands. And then I'm not sure if you're familiar with full color waterfowl, but every once in a while we'll have a joke about if you can shoot it, but you can't bend over to pick it up, you shouldn't shoot it.
Yeah. And
then I'll throw out there, extendable magnets are $4 at Harbor Freight. If you can buy a $50 box of bismuth shells and you can't buy a $4 magnet so you don't have to bend over, maybe reconsider what you're doing. Because all it takes is one person connected to somebody to see this negative imagery, and then we're right back in it again.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's negative imagery. It's painting us in a poor light. As we hunt, we love to hunt. You can be the most respectful hunter in the world, but I agree with you. You're not cleaning up your trash. You're leaving it on the ground like it's not your problem, somebody else's problem, whatever it might be. Yeah, I can understand that. I can see how that probably for some would be an uphill battle for you a little bit, when you're going down that road. But I agree with that one for sure.
We got a lot of hate from people who were like, I can't believe as a hunter you're talking to bird watchers and you're doing this and you're doing that. And it's like, but these people, right, they come out and they use our public land and they are active on social media, like way more than hunters are. Because I think we're active 3 months out of the year on social media. And then like the other 9 months, it's like talking about wishing we were in the 3 months. And these people are every season, every month, they're out doing stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, you want these guys who do all this stuff to be enemies? I think we can make them friends.
Yeah. And even the recent proposed public land sale and everything a couple months ago, right? Old Mike Lee doing his thing. It was what we saw with that. I mean, you already kind of briefly touched on it, just as far as the effect that people calling a politician's office can have, right? And that was a perfect example, I think, on how everybody can work together, because you had people from different organizations, pro-hunting, not really pro-hunting, but not anti-hunting, right? You had bird watcher groups and stuff like that. You had outdoor enthusiasts is what you had that were coming to the table with us, and it was one common voice and everything, and it spoke volumes, right? It was an overwhelming amount of support, and that's a perfect example of, somebody else who's enjoying the outdoors, who's a proponent of it, may never pick up a firearm or a bow or kill an animal in their life, but they're outside at least, and that's a good thing, I believe. I'm not. I've said on our show lots of times, I'm not trying to beat anybody over the head with my bow and, make them a hunter or anything. If I'm here to give them all the information and have it readily available to have those conversations and educate them if they want to learn, but I'm not going to pressure you into doing it. But they're proponents of the outdoors, and that was a perfect example of kind of unity on that front. The public land sale in and of itself is that's, I don't know, I've kind of had a change in opinion even since all that went down, because when all that happened, I was that guy that was pitchfork in hand, no, not 1 acre, not 1 inch, all that kind of stuff. And I've had some conversations with people on this show in recent months about that. One of them being Aaron Davidson from Gunworks, and he was talking about, he's like, man, lives in Cody, Wyoming. He's like, I got a housing problem up here. He said, I can't, don't have enough affordable housing for my employees to literally live here and work here, but I'm looking at public land out here, just a flat piece of sagebrush that could be houses. So I think there's got to be a localized component maybe to reutilization of some stuff, but these large blanket, just across the board efforts, that's what scares me a little bit. So
I'll concur with your feelings and thoughts on that. I think if it's a blanket policy, I'm a not 1 inch, not 1 acre, not 1 mile guy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But I do want to see localized components to that, because I do realize that there are states like Utah, where Mike Lee is from. There are states like Wyoming that have very interesting constitutions when it comes to how they can treat the land due to how they entered the United States of America. And sometimes I think we do have to refresh our policies, and that sometimes I say that, and then we get in the most myriad of discussions for people wanting to ask the most benign and banal questions. And I'm like, no, listen, like, we're talking about one policy, right? Like, we should definitely evaluate this. And I think if we do it, it shouldn't be a blanket policy that opens the door. I know, like, Aaron Schmaus and I talked about this on the Primitive Republic podcast, and we're in the same vein. If it's this blanket policy that opens the door for it to not just be one area, but millions of acres, let's not do that.
Right.
Let's, in fact, come up with these localized solutions with local voices. And people are like, well, how do we stop all this stuff? And I'm like, that's why we need local voices, right? How do we stop, say Blackstone Capital from coming in and buying all these affordable housing lots and then jacking the price up? Well, I don't know what the answer to that is, man. I'm not an economist. I don't study economics. I don't know what the answer to that is, but who does know? People who live in that area, right? Local politicians, local business owners are going to be the best people to talk to. And
right.
I think if we do sell that land, then we should work to buy land elsewhere.
True.
I think, like, we can trade off, right? There's tons of places that I'm sure would sell for the right dollar. And I'm not an eminent domain advocate. I don't think we should just go take it, right? Like, I don't ever want to come across that way, but there are tons of people who, if we talk to them, and you can get people to deed land. A lot of our public land in some states like Kansas has been deeded to the state upon people's passing. So there's tons of avenues to pursue with local solutions, local faces, local solutions. Right now, I feel like I sound like the CIA in 2012. Local faces, local solutions, solving local problems. But realistically, like, that's what we need. And we need those localized discussions, because there are places like Cody, Wyoming, who are locked in by this federal land and they can expand. And then, on top of that, we have issues of, like, private companies and entities owning large numbers of, like, multifamily or single family housing that's making it impossible for people to find opportunities. And I almost feel it's Pandora's box when we start this discussion.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's really hard to have a conversation about it and not start immediately trying to find a big, bad, evil guy that we can point a finger to and be like, you're the reason this is the way it is. And it's like, well, only because of the circumstances.
Hey folks, if you guys are in the North Texas area like I am, then you need to go to Bear River Archery and Pro Shop in Van Alstyne, Texas. Justin and the guys up there have an incredible operation set up. They will take great care of you and all of your archery needs. They are the official bow shop in North Texas of Fall Obsession. I love going there, and I'm picky. If you guys know me, I am very selective on who I let work on my bow. I will let Justin work on my bow. They do great stuff. Check out Bear River Archery and let them know that Fall Obsession sent you.
You know, like I'm not going to be the one who comes on a podcast and tells people they shouldn't make money, right? There are enough podcasts that are full of people with way wilder opinions than you and I who already do that.
Yeah, that's true.
and they speak less coherently, which is crazy. So, yeah, but I do think like with these public land issues, we need to have local voices as part of any solution. Whether it's the roadless rule, which I don't agree with, because
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
I wish I hadn't have taken all the stuff in my life that happened around this. I'm like, trying to think of like a politically correct way to like put it, but like what a terrible time for advocacy to have my life develop in the way it did and to kind of pull me away for a little bit for this to happen. But like, I'll give you an example of like even well-maintained areas. Like we watched a car burn down deer hunting, my dad and I once, because it set the grass underneath it on fire when it pulled into a ditch on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And like one moment we were like looking and glassing the prairie, and the next moment it's like, oh God, dude, there's a fire and it's close.
Yeah.
Because we could see it and we're like, that's the road. The road is either on fire. We were like, maybe we should go back and see what's going on to the parking lot. Here's this truck parked in a ditch. Like, I'm nothing against people who lower their trucks or lower their cars or jack them up, but it was lowered and they must have turned it off, and the hot undercarriage of the car set the long grass on fire.
Yeah.
Like you said on the episode you just released, that's all it takes. More machinery, more equipment. Forest fires and prairie fires are started more often than not by humans.
Yeah, you are just adding variables to it. I mean, nature already has its own variables, just with storms and all that kind of stuff, weather and everything, but you're adding variables to it. That's all you're doing, human and man-made objects. So,
and I think like our resources are tenuous in some of those areas. Like I'd love to draw a sheep tag, or like I'd love to go chase a bighorn sheep. I think to me they look like one of the most majestic animals that I could ever imagine chasing through the wild. And they live in such inhospitable areas in some of the West. And I'm like, that would be a bucket list. Well, they don't need roads to survive.
Right.
What they need is that area return to its natural state of habitat. And I'm like, we're just going to make things like that harder. I would just love to go to a place where I could see one at this point in my life, at 37 years old. I'd love to just go and put binoculars up or a spotting scope and just watch, and I think my parents almost moved to Nevada, and I was super advocating for this because I'm like, in 10 years, Dad, you could draw a desert bighorn tag. I just want to go with you.
Yeah, I just want to be a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care if I get a headache from staring through a spotting scope for 5 days in a row. I just want the opportunity to see one of those animals in the wild.
Yeah.
Whether or not you get to harvest it or not, that's a completely different story. And that's what, like, I think when we go back to advocacy, we can share those experiences very readily to people. Like, I got to watch this thing happen. Yeah. The first elk I saw was in public land that you couldn't hunt in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And like, it blew my mind how big they were. Because like you see them on television and hunting shows and you're like, that doesn't look that big. When somebody shoots one 300 yards away, you're like, it's big, and then you see it in real life, you're like, oh, yeah, that is huge.
Yeah. It's incredible, like, man. Yeah, I had my first elk hunt last year in Idaho, and we did the whole backcountry experience, ride back in 25 miles on horseback. Like, it was a 2-day ride just to get in there, and you want to talk about just being in a place that can truly put you in touch with public lands, nature, just creation in my opinion, right? It was absolutely breathtaking. Like, we're back in places that very few people have set foot, in ever. And it's humbling. It's very humbling. And it's like, this is what's important. And the whole experience just takes you back to a whole nother way of life. Just first and foremost, just no technology. And it is you and what you bring in there with you and what you're able to get out of it. Like, that's what you got to work with. And it was such an incredible experience. And you're right, the animals themselves are massive. We put a bull down on the side of this mountain, just in this really nasty deadfall, sharp rock ledges and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, we got to get this thing out of here, man. Like, this is insane. So it's an incredible experience. And to your point, that's the stuff that you get to come back and tell people about and everything. And at least from our standpoint here with our company and everything, it's like we try to document it too, so that we can, you don't have to watch the shot if you don't want to, but look at where we were. Like, look at the experience and everything. Look at what we went through. And that's the stuff that you can share with people and help them understand the value in that. And if you're sharing it personally like this, they see and sense your excitement about it too, which is contagious, in my opinion.
I mean, the story that I have from this past year is I was diver hunting on one of the lakes near me, and I had a river otter I had to chase my decoy with this river otter down to get it back from this river otter. I had taken a picture of it because it was like probably 20 minutes before legal light, but enough where you could see. And I see the shape coming across the water. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I didn't know what it was, but it was big, right? It was big enough to be like, what's happening here? And then it comes up to my decoy and it like bumps it, like with its head, it bumped it. And I see these little hands come out and just, and then it was like it couldn't figure out what was happening. So it just was like, I'm going to take this away. And I'm like, well, I got to put the kayak in the water now. And I got to go like chase this down. And I had like taken a picture of it and I sent it to like the ODWC, and they're like, we didn't know that there were like river otters that were in that part of the area. We knew that they were like further up and further south. We didn't know they were there. And so I'm like, I've shared that story with people. I also have bears on camera in places in Oklahoma where they're like, we didn't think there were bears here. And I'm like, there are black bears here.
Man, I'm surprised by how many bears are just north of the Red River from me, just over there in Oklahoma, so it's surprising.
And it's like, those are things that we can share with people, and they could like palpable excitement, for other people to be like, oh my God, like, sometimes I think when you talk about bears, people are like, they get a little nervous, and it's like, don't worry, they're not in your trash can. You're fine. I grew up in upstate New York. Black bears were everywhere. Right. Yeah. So I grew up around that whole idea of like, don't leave your car unlocked, because if there's food in your car, they can open your door, which I don't know if you saw that video going around about 2 weeks ago, the dude trying to open his door to get a bear out of like a Tahoe.
No, I didn't see that.
Pokes its head out. I'll have to see if I can find it and I'll send it to you. Like, pokes its head out and like nips the dude's hand like lightning quick, and then it pulls the door closed. Like, grabbed the door and is like, and closed it. And then somebody's like recording them from up above. And I'm like, that guy had a pretty bad experience. Or, as my father would say, a learning experience.
Yeah.
But I'm like, think about like all the people who see that and they're like, oh man, I want to go see a bear. I want to go see an elk, or I want to go see a river otter. And I think that stories like what you and I have shared are stories that make people want to go outside.
Yeah.
One of the biggest bucks I've ever seen for like a typical walked into the middle of my decoys one day.
Really?
We were river hunting in Kansas on the Arkansas River, and he had to be an easy 160, like mainframe, like solid 8-point. He was big, and just without a care in the world, it's like, I'm walking across the river, and this is before cell phones, so of course we have like no picture, or it was a Motorola Razor at like 3 megabyte or megapixels, or not even 3 megapixels. Probably. Like, I don't know if you grew up with the Motorola Razor as the cell phone. It was like, you're like, oh my God, I have a camera. And then you find all those pictures and you're like, these are terrible. And so like, we're watching this and he just into the middle of the decoys, and then he stops and he like nudges one of the decoys, like he couldn't believe that ducks were just letting him like walk through. And I was like, man, like if I had stayed home and didn't go, I wouldn't have seen that.
Yeah.
And I think about all the sunrises I've seen in different parts of the world. Like I'll tell you, 2 years I worked in Mexico for a higher ed institution that opened a branch campus there, and I spent plenty of nights out under the stars in a place where you couldn't see a city light
Oh yeah.
in the high desert at like 7,100 feet above sea level, and like just watch the most beautiful sunrises.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hunt or fish when I was there due to the laws in the area that I was living. But I was like, man, these are the pictures and the stories that I tell people. I'm like, you got to go places. You got to see the outdoors. You got to get out of the hotel room, get off the computer, right? Which is ironic because we're on computers talking to each
Yeah,
other,
we're
right?
talking right now on a computer. Yeah.
It's like, go out and see these things. And when I see, we talk about hunters not being the best people sometimes. When I see people who look at videos of tourists trying to approach animals they've never seen before, you know, I'm like, okay, but let's appreciate that they're outside for a second, right? Are they about to have a bad day? Yeah.
Probably.
But let's appreciate that these people decided that instead of going to Disney World or like Universal Studios or their local Six Flags, they went to a wild place. And for the first time in their life, they got to see a bison
Yeah.
or an elk. And granted, they didn't handle it the right way, but let's not make fun of them. Let's not bully them for these poor choices because life already taught them a very valuable lesson, which is why we have seen that video,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
all the videos I see of Yellowstone where people go approach animals, I'm like, oh, bad day, right? Because I too did that once
Right.
under a little bit more controlled circumstances. I got to see a bison calf from the KDWP because they have a bison herd out by McPherson, Kansas, and you can go see them. And they had this calf that they were nurturing. And they're like, if you can, like, you can touch it, but like, it's on you. And I'm like, I'm gonna touch it. I was like, I'm gonna tell people I pet a bison calf, and it headbutted me in the stomach so hard.
Oh, dude.
It was like hand was like coming out. I was like, oh, and like right before I touched his head, it was like wham, and I was like, oh,
Oh, you touched it.
I did.
Or it
Not
touched
in the way I
you.
thought.
Yeah.
It touched me. It touched my soul because in that moment I was like, yeah, this is probably what they knew was going to happen. And they just let this young kid who's in Boy Scouts, they're like, well, if he's going to do it, and everyone was laughing, right? It was like everyone laughed. And then once they like, because it headbutted me and then it backed up and like walked away and I was fine. I'm like, I learned a very valuable lesson here.
Yeah. No,
It hurt,
yeah.
but I did.
No joke. Golly. No, you make a great point, and I mean, I've never consciously just, not that I, am just berating people who you see in those videos and stuff, but I've never consciously, I would say, acknowledge that or anything like, hey, yeah, this may be a city slicker who has no idea even that is an elk in front of them. They think it's a freaking deer or something, right? But at least they made a choice to go to Yellowstone instead of somewhere else, right? That is a good first step for sure. It's funny because we went to Yellowstone last year actually on our way up to Idaho for me to go on this elk hunt. The whole family went with me. And we were walking through, and there was a giant 7x7 bull, like 10 yards off the trail that you're walking. And, of course, everybody is out there, including me, with their phones, videoing it. And eventually I put my phone down. I got him bugling right at us and everything on the video. It was awesome. But eventually I put my phone down because it's like, man, I'm guilty of it just as much as the next guy. That's everybody's automatic reaction in today's world is see something cool, you pull out your phone, and you're still living it through your screen, even though you're there. And it's like, I got to put it down, and I got to actually just be here right now and just experience this without having to worry about technology, yeah, it's so cool to show your friends, and that's ultimately what could spark somebody else's interest and everything. And I do video stuff, but at the same time, it's like I don't video everything, because if I do, I'm gonna miss what it's all about as well, in my opinion, because I'm gonna be so sucked up in something else. So
And like for me personally, like I have all the stuff to film. I ran a photography company. I still do contract photography and videography from time to time. Um, I made a conscious choice to not go out to film a lot of stuff as an advocacy page and as a person, because I want you to hear the stories I tell you, and I want the first thing not to be, oh, let me see that on your phone, but hey, let me go with you.
yeah,
And I've met hunters. I have a story I think I told on my Instagram about meeting a guy whose dad was a hunter. Dude just drove out and was like, "My dad hunted ducks." He like ran into me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm always iffy when I meet people out in the woods because you never know like who you're gonna meet. And I'd already set up all the decoys and everything, and I'm like, yeah, man, like come on, like I'll teach you, I'll help you. And it was like he made the conscious choice to go out, and then I put him on his first golden eye, and he shot a stud hooded merganser and a stud bufflehead and a stud ringneck all in the same day. And I'm like, damn, I never get this opportunity if it was just me by myself. And he's like, I'm gonna have these birds mounted and this, that, and the other. And I taught him, some of what I knew. And I'm like, this guy made this conscious choice to go out.
mm-hmm.
And he had this experience, and we ran into him. And I was, had I been more concerned about filming or something else, like I probably wouldn't have been able to share this moment with this guy. And I want people like that to have those experiences. I want them to come back, and I want my friends who hear my experiences to ask to come with me.
Right.
Even if they don't hunt, be like, hey, come spend a day. I always tell people, like, if you're gonna duck hunt for your first time, let's go hunt divers. You don't have to be quiet. You sit on the bank, relatively exposed, like, and go have a blast, because
Yeah.
if they see the decoys and they want to land, they're going to come in. And it's a perfect way to like get people in, because you don't have to get to the hole at 2 o'clock in the morning and deal with other people. It's like you show up, you have fun, you cook lunch or breakfast on the bank, and it's a great way to get people to experience nature. And I've taken colleagues out who've never done it just so they can see it. And the thing they talk about are the sunrises and the birds and the sights. And eventually they get to the fact that, oh yeah, like I was with John and he was hunting, but like it's all these things that they're like, oh, I never would have seen this had I never taken you up on this opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we create advocates. Some people say, oh, well, you're spot burning because you show people where your spots are. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't post it online. I show people who want to come.
Yeah.
And then they either get hooked, or they're like, that was a once in a lifetime experience, but I did it. I came out, and now I understand the passion and the advocacy for the outdoors.
Yeah.
And without public land, most of the memories I have for hunting and fishing wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
That's
No,
why till I die, I'm going to advocate that we have these public spaces.
absolutely. And no, that person that you take, they might go with you, they might have the time in their life, they might never go again, but you've shown them the reality, you've shown them the importance. They understand, like you just said, they understand your passion, they understand where it all comes from. And now when there is a problem, now when there is an issue, now when there is a public land sale or a roadless rule, and you're like, they either see it and do it on their own, or maybe you can tell them, hey man, this is important to me, and they're in your corner. They're like, yeah, man, I'll take 50 seconds to make a phone call. Like, of course I will. It's
Yeah.
no thing. So, yeah, you're creating advocates that way for sure. So, is your page, like the Public Land Advocate, is that solely focused on just a social media presence, or are you've kind of talked about a couple other things in passing as far as some other things that you've been involved in a more local level? So does the Public Land Advocate expand outside of just what we see on social media, other than you and just how you represent hunting personally?
It's less public focused. Obviously, I have some things that with my work, it's some state laws that like limit what my presence is, and we kind of talked about that before the show. And,
Yeah.
it's about what I want to say about that. So
Yeah.
I do extend beyond that, but it's more like me as a person, and a group of people that like I hunt with that have turned into advocates. But a lot of like what you see on my page and social media is what I do. Obviously, some of the stuff that has been put out there has to have my personal name on it because we're working with the ODWC, or we're working with other people to get laws changed or to evaluate practices. And it's harder to like represent yourself as a social media presence when you're dealing with politicians, as opposed to like, hey, this is me, this is my real name, this is what I do, this is where also you can find me, right? And
Hey guys, Trophy Edits is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. We all have mounts on our walls that represent a significant moment, a significant harvest in the woods for each and every one of us, and photographs can do the same. I'm sure you guys have pictures from years past, hunting with loved ones or being in the woods with family and friends that also represent those big moments. And what Trophy Edits does is they showcase those moments for you guys. Just absolutely make your pictures explode and to the level that you guys can put them on the wall and also have that memory forever represented in your home, your office, your man cave, whatever it might be. Give Trophy Edits a chance to do the work for you guys. And again, they make those pictures just absolutely awesome with their professional team of editors. So go to Trophy Edits website. The link is in the podcast description. That lets them know that you guys came from us. And use the code FALLOBSESSION at checkout to save you guys some money.
so I do have to have a little bit of that separation because it works better. You know, I'm not a major organization. It's just me. And I don't like, I always say, and pardon the French, but I always say it's me in my ass pocket doing the public land advocate because that's where my wallet is. And that's, I'm spending my own money. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I've been approached by people and have said, hey, like, I want to do this like on my own, but like, I don't ever get mad at people who are sponsored. This costs money. Setting this up, doing a podcast costs money. Going outside costs money, right? Gas ain't free. Shells for the shotgun aren't free. Experiences aren't free. Unfortunately, it does cost money. But outside of this, I do a lot under my own name as well, especially like when I have to interact with political presences, just because it's easier that way. If I had an organization and nothing against like ever thinking about starting that. Like I've had a couple preliminary conversations with other orgs to get chapters started here in Oklahoma so we can have more of a political presence and it becomes less me putting my name out there due to constraints from work. But until that gets underway, it's either the public land advocate or my own personal name. And that's about what I do. I'd like to advocate. We just caught I'm going to be kind of sparse with the details a little bit, not because I'm choosing to withhold the information because the case is still going, but we did just interrupt like a poaching ring thanks to cellular cameras. Okay. So will it make the news? It's up to the ODWC, but myself and like a couple other folks had to sign sworn affidavits for the court system for like what we said. You can't put the public land advocate down as your name in a sworn affidavit. Right. So like we just caught, people who've been filtering in and out of a national wildlife refuge who are doing things they shouldn't be doing. And, I always try to look when I'm out in the woods for cell cameras, not because I'm doing bad stuff, but because in Oklahoma, I don't know if you ever get on, but there's like an Oklahoma Hunt and Fish Facebook, and I don't have Facebook anymore. But there were dudes who would go out and find cell cameras and do weird stuff in front of them. So people would post the pictures. And so I'm always like, be aware when you're in the woods. And, we hung a cell camera so we could scout for the drawn hunt that we were drawn into and ended up like uncovering something more that was going on, which is good. So, it's a little column A, column B.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like for advocacy work and things like that. It was like a long way to answer that.
No, that's all right. Yeah, there's and all of that too, just to be an encouragement to others. It's you don't have to have a social media presence to do stuff like this, right? Like all the boots on the ground stuff that you kind of alluded to just now. Like anybody who's passionate about it and willing to step forward and put their mind to it can advocate and take action in those senses, like you mentioned, or similar senses, or whatever it might be. So, and yeah, I encourage everybody to get involved at a local level and definitely pay attention at a more national level because, yeah, it's only a matter of time before stuff like the roadless rule or other things like that are impacting you. So, and I'm curious to see how that shakes out because I know you mentioned it earlier and we got to talking, but I saw a post today about how the comment analysis, following the hearing period was like 99% opposed to the rescinding of the roadless rule, and it's like 0.2% was neutral or whatever. So literally less than 1% at least of the results they got out of that was in favor of. So they got to pay attention to that, man. So I haven't seen anything new other than that today. I've been trying to stay tuned in, but
I don't understand how they can ignore the people. But and to reference other people and other podcasts I've talked to, Aaron Schmaus and I, when we looked at the first attempt with Mark Amadei and Celeste Malloy for the public land sale, all the people who were in favor of it were the people who were set to make money.
right.
Right. Obviously, there are people who want to buy houses, like the situation that you spoke about, who were in favor of it. But, I think when we start looking at that, I wish we could make some of the public comments more public so we can be like, oh, who's actually writing in? Because you can make public comments as a business, right? So as your business Fall Obsession, you could create a public comment.
Right.
And it carries it's supposed to carry the same weight as if I, as a private citizen, or you as a private citizen, made a comment. And I'd really like to have a follow the money deep dive. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever get that opportunity.
Yeah, it has to. I feel like it has to be a little more. I don't know. We got a glimpse in that just because the information was more publicized, like with the last public land sale. And I mean, you can draw your own conclusions, but I mean, you can look at like Mike Lee's donors and speculate on who's set to gain from that, right? And I mean, I think that there, regardless of what anybody says, there would be some backdoor dealing going on there. But yeah.
It's no surprise that everyone who had a donation from the National Home Builders Association and the National Association of Realtors supported the public land sale because they have been anti-public land since they became a national organization. Mm-hmm. Same with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, who not openly, but monetarily supported Cliven Bundy and the movements that he took. Also, by the way, Celeste Malloy is related to them, and some of the lands that were going to be sold were lands that are still under contention by the Bundy family, which would have wiped the debts that family owes. Right? So follow the money, know who's donating to your politicians, and know what those organizations stand for. And
yeah,
for sure. Like I feel like you could dive down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
You 100% could, but I think I'll just leave it at the fact that when we talk about pay attention, when we talk about do your research, understand what's going on, it's not just it's more than just an understanding, like listening to this podcast and the taking away the roadless rule would be bad and leaving it at that. Like, take the time to, when you're sitting on the toilet, right, scrolling social media, maybe do a few internet searches and try to come up with some information on your own to kind of educate yourself on some of the stuff that's going on. And even if you don't want to do that, there are so many organizations or pages such as yourself that will do the work for you. All you got to do is follow along. So,
and I'm huge on doing research. Like I love to do research. I love to read about things. And the roadless rule basically guaranteed that we have cutthroat trout for generations to come. And that we were able to have some of the Pacific Northwest salmon species return further upstream than they'd previously been returning. And we were able to rebound all that. And it's like, species that when I was a kid, in the 90s, maybe you'll catch a wild cutthroat. But you got to go to these far away places. And we brought those species back through careful environmental science. We brought salmonoids back through careful environmental science. And the research supports what we're doing and why we shouldn't repeal the roadless rule. And why do some of these people want it to go away and risk this ecology that we've spent billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Working.
100%. Well, we'll see how the roadless rule stems out. For anybody listening right now, it's going to be if you missed whether you did or did not, provide any feedback or fill out send anybody any emails for the hearing period on the roadless rule. More recent than that, the Department of the Interior is trying to rescind the public lands rule, which is another very important thing. It's not 2 decades old like the roadless rule is, but ranks conservation or conserving public lands, I should say, pretty high on the priority list, right? As far as something that this country is going to value as importance. So the period for you to provide feedback and send in your comments on that is open right now. So people need to take advantage of that. And again, 60 seconds. That's all it takes.
Yep. Pause the podcast. Go do that right now. Right?
Pause the podcast.
I'm a huge. Look, if you're not watching us live, hit pause.
Yeah, exactly.
Go do what we asked you to do. It's not going to take any more time out of your day. Just don't do it while you're driving, right?
Yeah.
Let's be safe when we do it, but go do that.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling spicy, call the switchboard in DC.
Yeah.
Leave an actual phone call. I'm sure my state rep and my senator probably screen my phone calls, how often I call them.
Here we go again. Public land advocate.
They're like, it's that guy again. I had an email from Senator Langford who was like, I have sent numerous replies to you. And I'm like, they all say the same BS, man. Come up with a better argument.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm always like, if you sent numerous replies, don't you think that me and everybody else who's advocating are doing this not because we want to? Obviously, ideally, I'd want to never have this conversation again.
Yeah.
Because then I could go outside, I could do other things, I could not have to be a presence on the internet, and I know it's all a choice. But if I never had to worry about this again because we did such a good job, that would be my ideal outcome. Right? But unfortunately, interests at play mean that we have to continue to pay attention, mean that we have to continue to work for this. And I'd love there to be a day where, our future generations never have to worry about public land, never have to worry about the opportunity to see wild spaces. And if that comes from a conversation you and I had that then inspired other people, excellent. But until that day, I'm still going to beat that same drum. I'm still going to make those phone calls, still going to send those emails. And I think that's what we should do.
No.
And then we should expose more people to wild places.
Yeah.
Because even if they see it once, like you said, that's what it takes to pick up on the passion that you and I feel.
Absolutely. Very well said, man. I couldn't put it better myself. So
appreciate that,
man. We could probably will at some point. We could do a whole nother podcast over just by keeping going. I feel like, but somehow we've already been going over an hour, which is hard to believe. So I am gonna have to start wrapping it up a little bit. But I did want to ask you, because you mentioned it earlier and we haven't hit on it. I want to ask you about the crossbow topic. Because you perked my ears up, because I am that guy that does not like crossbows. The only time that I like them is when somebody physically cannot shoot a compound bow. So I want to hear your argument on it. Maybe we'll disagree on something.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I am back to a vertical bow. Right? I'm back shooting a vertical bow. I still have the crossbow. I shoot a vertical bow now. My argument for a crossbow is when we get people out to the woods and they have a positive experience, that creates more advocates. And regardless of like what they use, right? I liken the crossbow debate to the debate about the 6.5 Creedmoor, right? Everybody's allowed to have their opinion,
Right.
right? I know, like, you're a big vertical bow guy. You're vertical bow until you DIE, essentially,
Yep.
right? Or until you physically can't do it anymore. I think there's some good research that demonstrates that crossbows have a higher lethality for novice hunters when they treat it the way that they should. And I think that's an important thing to preface this with, because let's drive it with some data and then we can get into our feelings.
Right.
So I think, for me, as somebody who shot a vertical bow most of their life, and then obviously shot a crossbow because I had an injury that needed surgery to repair, I still am very hesitant about some of my shots with a vertical bow. And I think that for good reason, right? We all have horror stories. And I don't think my story about choosing the choice that I made with the crossbow is going to win me any friends. They're going to be like, oh, you took a frontal shot. And I'm like, I know people have taken frontal shots on elk with vertical bows too, right? Like, we do what we think is right in the moment. And what we think is right by the animal in the moment. And I think if crossbows help people have more lethality, that means we treat the animal with more respect. Do I think that, like, crossbows, people should be taking 100-yard shots with crossbows? No, but I don't think they should do that with vertical bows, right? But I say that knowing full well that the people who are doing it are practicing probably way more than I do. I shoot probably 30 arrows a day from like June to hunting season, and then I continue that during hunting season when I'm not out. There are dudes out there who are doing reps with their bow for 500 arrows a day. I'm like, good for you that you have that amount of time.
That's a lot of time,
Right?
for
Like,
sure.
awesome. But I think for confidence in a new hunter or somebody who's not otherwise physically able, a crossbow helps bridge that confidence gap.
Yeah.
And I also think when you pair it with the right mechanical broadhead, this is another debate we can get into. Because I just saw your facial reaction to that. You have a very capable person who may be inexperienced. If you're inexperienced and you're taking a 100-yard shot, I like it with a crossbow. It's the same as if you're taking a 400-yard shot with a rifle. Probably don't.
Right.
But I think if we're getting people to the woods, we're creating those positive experiences. Guess what they're doing? They're going out and sharing that with their friends. They're being the advocate that we want them to be.
You're making it really hard for me to argue this one. No, you do make a very valid argument for sure, and I can appreciate that. Where my dislike for crossbows comes from is like down here in Texas, and I'll be honest with you, I've never hunted Oklahoma. I'd have to look up like how y'all seasons work up there, even though y'all are not that far from me. But like down here, archery season opens a month before general season, and general season is just any weapon. And I have, prior to my current career as a fireman, I worked at an archery pro shop, and I interacted with a lot of people who just were too lazy to put in the time with a vertical bow. So perfectly fit and capable human beings that just wanted an extra month of bow season, so they would buy or hunting season, so they would buy a crossbow so that they could hunt. And for me, I got a little bit bad taste in my mouth with that, because I also have a bunch of people who are putting the time in and the work to have that confidence with a vertical bow. And for me, like, my push to go bow only was inspired by being behind a rifle. Got to the point where it felt so easy for me. Like, I wanted to challenge myself more. So that's kind of where all of those thoughts and everything stemmed. And yeah, I've had this reputation follow me as being a crossbow hater because of that. And certainly I will say, like, definitely if you are not able, like physically able to shoot a vertical bow, then like no harm nor foul at all. And your argument for it, I can't not support that, man. Like, that makes total sense. It honestly does. Just if it's a means to get somebody into hunting and everything like that. I also got tricked when I worked at the bow shop, because I was a young guy. I was motivated. I wanted to learn everything. So the tech that worked on crossbows was like, well, let me teach you how to work on crossbows. So I learned how to work on crossbows. And then next thing I know, he stopped working on crossbows, and I was the only guy that worked on crossbows. And I hated it. I hated working on those things. So that didn't help my my disdain.
I mean, I got into archery hunting because my uncle was a bow hunter. I bow fish with a vertical bow, and it really like tore me up when I couldn't. Like I had damaged my rotator cuff so bad that like for a year or 2 years, it physically hurt to hold even a 50-pound bow at full draw. And like I was like, man, I got to get back to it. And this year, like I had shot my old bow for a while, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be something newer than a 2006 Hoyt that I could shoot. And I got into a Matthews lift, and I was like, I like this. Like
That's comfortable
it like
for sure.
rekindled that for me. And I was like, okay, nice. And I think for people that want to take the extra month, okay, like, but tell stories, right? Like, don't just be, it's about the crossbow, you know? And I think the same thing for rifle hunting. When you were like, rifle hunting got boring for me, I'm like, you must be a way better shot than I am.
I won't say that. I won't say that.
And I say that, and I've had people witness some immaculate shots that I've made offhand at distances I probably shouldn't have shot offhand at out on the Kansas prairie. And it's like, you know, everything came together for those. But at the same time, you know, they didn't inspire confidence in me. They inspired me to be very critical of myself and the decisions that I had made. And I think that type of reflection is necessary in us as hunters. You know, my friends criticize me when we duck hunt together because they're like, you wait forever for the birds to get how you want them before you call the shot. Because I'll be like, I'm calling the shots, right? Like, I want them to look like a Ducks Unlimited picture, feet down, wings cupped. You know, I try to not take passing shots because I don't want to wound a bird. And that was my process for the crossbow. Is I'm like, okay, if I tune my broadheads to my crossbow, I feel I have more control over what I'm doing in this stage of my life than had I tried to horse myself into shooting a vertical bow.
Right.
And now, even with my vertical bow, I tune my crossbow or my broadheads to my vertical bow. Am I good at it? No. In fact, one of my friends who runs his own archery shop in Wichita is like, I wouldn't trust him to work on a bow. But he's like, for somebody who can tune a mechanical broadhead the way that I do, to your bow, to your poundage, to your arrow, he's like, you made me a believer in wanting to shoot mechanicals again.
Yeah.
And he's like, because you sit there for such a long time and play with the pressure on because I shoot a lot of rage broadheads. I'll play with that Allen screw that retains the blades until I get it to where I want it to be.
Yeah.
So I can reduce my ability to have a failure to open.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. Hope you guys are enjoying it. There's so many different places that you guys can tune in to Fall Obsession Podcast, and one of them is the Outdoor Call radio app. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV, he created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. Our show, Fall Obsession Podcast, plays on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications on the other apps. And there's also tons of other hunting shows and podcasts on there that you guys can listen to. Go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow their Facebook page, because Outdoors Dan does some live radio shows throughout the week. And even if you are not local to those radio stations, his broadcasts are shared on his Facebook Live. It's Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call radio app. Go download it today. No.
And I think as hunters, we should do that.
No, I'm very particular about my equipment and everything like that. And I'm not an anti-mechanical guy by any means. I've shot mechanical broadheads for years. My favorite broadhead of all time has been the Gravedigger from Bloodsport. Bloodsport's ultimately the umbrella company that makes it, but 2-blade fixed, cut on contact, and then 2-blade expandable, so 4-blade total. It's been my favorite one that I've found as far as flight, reliability, like I've never shot that and not gotten a pass through. And some of that comes down to shot placement too, right? Like, I mean, that plays a factor, but I've absolutely loved that broadhead. This year is actually my first year in probably close to 10 years that I'm not shooting mechanicals. I'm shooting fixed blades. And another, we've met some folks up in Indiana from Vantage Point Archery, American made, broadhead company, and they've been working on me as far as trying to convince me to shoot some of their stuff and give it a try. So this year I'm doing it. I'm not doing any out of state hunts this year, so my shots are going to be shorter range, bow hunting down here in Texas pretty much. So it's like the perfect opportunity to put them through the paces. So I'm looking forward to doing that, but I also got into the long range archery shooting and everything like that, and not because I want to kill animals at long ranges or anything like that, but it's more so one, it's especially if I'm hunting out west, it's an ability to reach out there if I need to, if it is an ethical shot to take. And two, if I'm consistently practicing at 70, 80, 90 yards with a bow and I have a deer walk out at 20, it's like, it's a chip shot. It's the easiest shot you can ever make. So it helps me build my own confidence in my own brain, everything like that. I will never, like 40, 45, depending on the circumstances, that's like the max that I would ever fling an arrow at a whitetail, honestly. Even though my setup can reach out there and touch something, just for me personally, that's my limit. So
Same. I mean, with the bow and the arrow setup and the sight setup I have right now, I shoot like a teacup size at 60 yards.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I like that. Sometimes, like when I look at the arrow impact on the target and I see like the different like penetrated depths, I'm like, either I hit the same spot on the target and the arrow obviously went in deeper, but I do get a little disconcerted when you have an arrow at 60 yards sticking a foot further out of the target than the rest of them. And you're like, it gives me pause if that's an animal and I'm missing 12 inches of penetrative depth.
Right.
Right? Is that one lung? Is that two lungs? Is that, where am I at? Especially on a whitetail. And, I haven't had the opportunity to hunt anything other than whitetails and mule deer in my life. But I'll say this, like my wife is a medical professional and we've had long conversations about lethality on animals. And she's like, one lung on a deer is always fatal if the arrow comes out. If the deer breaks the arrow off because of how their lungs are set up, it will clot around the arrow. And that's why sometimes you'll get deer that people harvest. They're like, oh, it went through the scapula, it hit the lung, but it didn't deflate it. And she was talking about this to me at length one day. And I was like, who are you? She's sitting over there and she's laughing right now at this because she's like, I want to talk to you about how trauma and like traumatic medicine can inform bow hunters and just hunters in general better. And so she I don't know, we talked for 2 hours about the same topic, and
That's
just the amount of information she had like blew my mind. But it also made me realize like we can be much more ethical hunters if we shoot at distances that make us feel the most comfortable. Right. And for me, like if I get a shot where I live now in the hardwoods up here, more than 40 yards, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And for my practice, I start at 25 and then I'll move to 60 and then shoot back
Yeah.
in. And, I got to go move my target every time I have a bow range on our new house. But I'm like, to me, it's like, yeah, I want to stretch that out there. Yeah. I used to shoot long range when I was younger with rifles up to like 600-700 yards on like a target line. And I love that. Like, I love testing my ability. One day I'd like to make 1,000-yard shot just to see if I can hit the black on a target. But I think that's something we should do as hunters, right? Like you should know what your arrow and what your bow does when you're out past 60 yards. And because I'm sure you've had this happen, when you get past through, sometimes your arrow does weird stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't always just stick in the ground so you can see your lighted knock. I've had them come through deer and hit the elbow on the way out and been 50 yards deep in the woods because it skipped off and went up. And you're like,
No, like coming out on the other side, it's like a pinball machine, man. It's just like I've watched it just go up through the trees and stuff before. It's like, what in the world? So yeah.
So yeah, like I think it's important for us, and like I will say, like, I want to get into long range archery, but like haven't just been shooting again consistently with a better setup. Like I think that's maybe a next year thing for me, but
Yeah.
I want to see what it's like to shoot beyond 65, 70 yards.
Man, like every little detail, like every little thing comes into play. You got to be so consistent with everything, which I got a little bit of a perfectionist in me in that regard. So I take pride in, okay, I got everything's got to be exactly the same. But man, when you got a target that is that far away from you, and you have the chance to release and just hang there like a statue, and you watch that arrow just arc all the way down in there and hit the mark, dude, there's nothing like it. Like I may never take a shot that far at an animal in my life, but golly, I will always shoot long distance on a range, because if not just making me a better archer, it's freaking fun. It's just freaking fun out there doing it. So
when I first when I lived by myself and I was working in Tennessee and I got back into bow hunting and picked it back up, I only had like a 4-pin sight. So I was like 20, 30, 40, 50. I would just see like how can I shoot 100 yards? And I probably destroyed more arrows out of like sheer curiosity than I would ever like to admit, where you're like, all right, dude, that God knows where that went. Like,
yep.
you're like, and I would try to do that too. Like, I'm like, okay, what if you get a low light public land shot and you're going to step out to 50 yards, or, maybe it's 60 yards, and you're like at dusk and you're like, good luck, wink. And you like watch it go, and it gets that point where like it kind of disappears because you're in a low light condition. You're like, I hope that hit the target. I hope I can go find it in this field, or that's an expensive mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
And I used to buy like arrows by the dozen from like Walmart. I know, like as someone who ran a bow shop, you're like, oh no,
Don't
right?
do that.
But I would to try to do that stuff. I go shoot Walmart arrows, because I'm like at $5 for a full setup or less. You're like, for a fully set up arrow. I'm like, okay. Like I don't mind like experimenting with arrows I'm not gonna hunt with to see what they do.
Yeah.
Just because it's fun.
We finally disagree on something. I can't get behind that.
Okay, I don't. Full disclosure, I don't do it anymore, right? But like when I was younger, I was like, I don't want to destroy my high quality arrows trying this. So I'm gonna go buy a dozen arrows from like Walmart or Amazon, and I'm just gonna see what happens. Because if I destroy a carbon arrow that's $19 a dozen, as long as it doesn't blow up in my hand. And I was younger, I was dumber, right? I hadn't seen what an arrow does to your hand when it explodes on your bow.
Oh yeah.
At that time, and I've since been educated by friends and photos.
Oh yeah.
And I also saw a fiberglass golf shaft delaminate and explode in person once.
Ugh.
And all of those made me go, I was playing with fire when I was 26.
Yeah.
Like, I could have been that dude in the hospital with the x-ray of your hand looking like a pincushion or missing a finger or worse.
Yeah. No,
So, I won't advocate that, right? Like, let me be the advocate for the outdoors and intelligent decision making. Don't do that.
Yeah. Do a little bit of research. Do a little bit of research on what you need there.
The internet is $30 a month for your cell phone. It's limitless information that you can do the research before you make bad decisions.
Yeah. Oh man.
Because I'll tell you, those hospital bills are way more expensive than your phone's internet plan or a high quality arrow.
I completely agree with that for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not going to advocate people do that now. I was just telling you, as somebody who I knew worked in an archery shop by your own kitchen, I'm like, he'll get a kick out of this.
Oh, yeah.
The whole time on your face. If you guys watch this on your YouTube, look at Sam's face while I'm telling him this story, and he is just mortified.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks to all the customers that would come in, and you're like, you're shooting what? how's that rigged up? And you're trying so hard to hold back and, and still be polite because they're the customer, but it's like you're an idiot. What are you doing?
If I have arrows on the target contact now and there's any chip in the lamination, trash bin.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like I saw a dude in the woods last year shooting an arrow that looked like a leopard pattern. There were so many chips out of the lamination, and I was like, don't be near me.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand a safe distance away whenever you shoot.
Yeah,
so.
I'm gonna be as far away from you as I can. And like I saw it when we were walking out, right? I was like, oh God. And it was like he walked out with his bow knocked too. And I was like, did we all not go to hunter safety and see that same video about when they talk about what happens if you fall
Yeah.
on a broadhead? Like, dude, that's you alone under a tree hoping your last minutes are not spent in brutal agony.
Yeah.
If you make that mistake. And I'm like, dude, my guy.
Yeah. Hey, man. real quick, just a thought.
Yeah. Hey, maybe get a different arrow.
Yeah.
Like even on my crossbow, if I shot a deer with a bolt, nope, new one.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't risk any potential delamination because then your face is right next to it too.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I've had good luck with pass-throughs. Like I certainly like my arrows get more than an inspection. Like if I get a pass-through on an animal, it gets not just the visual inspection, but I'm going over every inch of that thing. I'm flexing it, I'm bending it, I'm trying to get it to break if it's going to, with like gloved hands and everything, and then I'm spin testing it, making sure that it's still good. And I was mad because I called it my killing arrow just because I didn't have a better name for it, but I had 7 pass-throughs with one arrow and it was still going strong. And when we moved 3 years ago, I lost that arrow.
Oh no.
And I was so mad. My wife was like, "Why are you so mad? It's just an arrow." I was like, "But it was my arrow. It was the arrow. It was the arrow that did it all." So yeah, RIP. But
I had an arrow. It was on my wall of shame. And I think I threw it away when we moved. And it was what happens when your crossbow bolt hits something hard when you miss.
oh yeah.
And I got like, I had the worst, like opening day, I went out, a nice shooter doe came out, and I'm like, oh, let's go. Like, let's just get the jitters out of the way. And I had like buck fever. I get buck fever on like every deer I see. I'm like, it's I'm just like,
That's awesome.
yes, like let's go. I did something right. And I like just underneath her, and it clipped a branch, probably like a 3-inch like branch on the ground. And I found it a month later, and it had blown apart.
Oh dang.
And it was like shredded. Like I'd found pieces of carbon fiber, and it only cut like 1/8 of an inch through the branch when it had hit it that was on the ground.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. So that's like why now I'm super critical of if they hit anything hard. I'm like, I don't want to risk
Rather be
that becoming into me.
Yeah, rather be safe than sorry, if anything, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
So, man, I am gonna get to wrapping it up here, because like I said, I feel like we just we could go all night probably. But 2 quick questions for you. I ask every first time guest I have on the show these 2 questions.
Okay.
First one is, what is your favorite hunting memory to date? I probably could have prepped you for that one a little bit more.
That's fair. I'll give you one that is probably like my dad's favorite. Obviously taking that giant buck is one of my favorites. Because it's a big deer. But I remember the first time I got to skip school to go hunting. My dad like checked me out of school. He's like, we're gonna go out opening day. My dad had a back injury, so he's like, I'm not gonna hunt, but I'm gonna hunt with you, because I was like 14. And he was like, okay, go. Like, we didn't see anything, and he's like, I'm gonna go make a little push and see if we can drive a deer towards you. And I smoked a huge Kansas doe. And I remember my dad comes up to it, and this is one that always stands out in my head because I knew that like he was gonna be upset because he's like, I can't help you because his back was hurt, and he was like out with a cane helping me hunt. And I smoked this giant doe. And he walks up to it, and I just remember him going, and like this is the language of the story. He just goes, "Fuck," and I was like,
Yeah, I shot a deer. What are you doing?
I like dropped it where it stood. Why are you upset about it? Like I was so confused, and he's like, I was hoping it wasn't going to be the big one because my back hurt. The story is made better because this is now the first deer that I have to gut. Because he's like, nope, back hurts. Figure it out. He's like walking me through it. And I'll be honest, until I was 25, I used to get squeamish about that.
Yeah.
And I remember like as soon as I opened it up and I like got the guts out and I opened the chest cavity because I'd punched it right through the heart, I just all over myself let go. And so now I have to drag this giant deer out by myself, and I have puke all over like my thighs.
Oh my word.
And like I don't tell that story a lot because one, it's probably super embarrassing, but it's also like the story of like why I want to share hunting with people because like children probably aren't in my wife and I's future because of some other issues that I'd rather not talk about with that. But it just showed me the lengths that like people will go to make these lifetime memories with you.
Yeah.
And if I can help other people get their kids in to make the same memories, it's like one of those stories that I'm like, I laugh at this now, but when I was at that time, I was like, why are you upset at me? I did what you wanted. I made a like wonderful shot on this beautiful animal. And my dad's just like, damn it. Like, my back is gonna hurt so bad. And I'm like, I'll do everything by myself. And like I was like, oh. Then I threw up on myself. Then we had to drag it like a mile back to the car.
Oh,
and I'm so happy like cell phone cameras like weren't a thing at that point because I couldn't imagine like that picture still being out there in the ether.
Yeah.
Of like what I had to have looked, because you know the first time you process like you gut a deer by yourself, you don't do a good job.
No.
You get covered in it, and like I was like he made me like to make matters worse and at my own embarrassment. We got back to the car and I didn't bring a change of clothes.
Oh,
right.
Man.
So he's like, nope, pants aren't going in the car. They're going in the trunk. I had to ride home in like my shirt and tighty whities. And he stopped at McDonald's as a reward for me.
Oh,
and I think he did it for his own entertainment. Right? He'll swear to you because he was hungry. But I think it's for his own entertainment. So that is probably one of my favorite hunting stories to share at times because it's like this just as a 14-year-old kid, you're like, I'm so confused.
Yeah, that
I don't understand what I did.
that is awesome, man. Yeah, even like and this, I don't know, the storytelling and stuff, the experiences, they're just contagious because we don't have time to get into it. But like that story made me think of like 10 other stories from me growing up hunting and you know stuff like that might not have been funny at the moment, but my dad and I look back on it now and chuckle for sure. So
oh yeah.
Last question for you. Bucket list hunts, once in a lifetime hunts for you. What's at the top of that list?
I feel like we already talked about that.
Yeah, you mentioned the sheep, I believe, or the ram.
Bighorn sheep for sure. Or I'd love to go on a Cape Buffalo hunt with my dad.
Ooh. Yeah.
Like Africa has always had that mystique. And I kind of screwed my dad out of going to Africa this summer because I got married. And he didn't tell me he was going to Africa when we planned everything. Or like he had the opportunity to go, right? Yeah. He didn't tell me. And I was like, you knew for 2 years and you were just going to keep it secret? And he was like, I didn't want you to be mad at me. And I'm like, why would I have been mad that you got to go and I didn't, right? Like I wouldn't have been upset about that. but like he's always wanted to go to Africa and do Cape buffalo hunt, and like I would love to do that with him. Because he like as part of getting into hunting, he had the full collection of like Peter Hathaway capstick books, like Death in Silent Places, Death in the Long Grass,
Yeah.
North American Dangerous Game. And I read those books like they were religion.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to see African animals in the wild, not in a zoo, but like, and then be able to potentially harvest one
Yeah.
as well.
That's awesome.
Because yeah, those would be the two like bucket list hunts. One for our continent and then one for the if I had to travel.
There you go. Yeah, those would be two awesome experiences for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, man, as we wrap it up, tell our listeners where they can find you if they want to check
Sure.
out your page and what you got going on.
Sure. I run an Instagram, very simple title, The Public Land Advocate. That's primarily where you can find me. Right now, I did have a podcast. You can find some of our old episodes on Spotify under the exact same name. It didn't change. I think Aaron Schmaus and I from the Primitive Republic are going to restart that with a couple ideas that we have kicking around, which I'd love to get you in on this too, as somebody who travels to hunt and talk about out-of-state hunters.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a topic that I'm also going to tackle on the advocacy page as well. So if you guys are interested and have strong opinions about out-of-state hunters, love to see you guys in the comment section so we can have a discussion about that and not throw trash cans or shade at each other, but realize that like in hunting, sometimes traveling is a necessity for hunting. So find me on Instagram, interact with me, send me a message, follow me, getting back into posting more than I have been, just because life is slowing down a little bit for me.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, John, thank you for giving us more time than you probably originally planned on for a Fall Obsession podcast, and I don't doubt it. Probably won't be your only time on the show. We'll have you back on here before too long. But thanks for joining me.
Yeah, of course, Sam. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And man, I feel like we could probably talk for another 4 hours.
we probably could. Yeah, I feel like there's a few more episodes still sitting here over us.
Sure.
So we'll have to do it again soon. But
Of course.
for our listeners tuning in, appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you got something out of it. Go follow John and his page and everything he's got going on over there. And until next week, catch you then.